We are a
Sure
fair
they do.
podcast.
I'm sure we're fair.
There are no podcast favorites here. Everyone is equally yellow flagged.
Oh, that's a bunch of BS, and you know it.
And
That's almost
since
a
we're
caution
using
That's
right
awesome.
there. That is a caution
since
right there. I'm
I
sorry.
don't think so. No, who's the favorite?
You tell
Of
me.
course, me, because
Well,
I
Mason
have such
doesn't
a
have any
glistening
evidence.
forehead and just a happy personality.
Welcome back to the Track Packers podcast for episode 19 of season 3. We are on a late hour on this Tuesday night, but we're going to crank out a podcast for you lovely listeners and watchers out there with myself, Mason, Mr. Jessup Pelkey, and Mr. John Breckel as we are Becca-less this week. Hopefully she's resting up, getting ready for a beautiful weather weekend, as Becca would say. Wouldn't you say so, John? Because the forecast for this weekend is looking beautiful for Becca's out there.
Becca will not need to have any type of, you know, jacket on, maybe 5X sweatshirt on, or an extra large beanie.
No,
She
and
should
it,
be just happy as a lark this weekend.
if she is in any of that stuff, please send pictures.
That'd be great.
So, well, okay, to Becca's credit on this, I do have to say, I will not be surprised if Becca ends up in sweatpants or a sweatshirt at some point throughout the night, because on Friday night at the Dakota Speedway, we had a nice night, got our show in, weather was pretty good overall, but the bugs were terrible. We opened up the tower door to pull the camera and everything else in at the end of the night, and I literally got swarmed by bugs because I couldn't figure out. I'm like, why is Becca like wearing a sweatshirt and sweatpants? So, because it was Becca wise weather, and it was because of the bugs. She's like, John, be careful when you open the door. You're gonna get swarmed. Sure enough, I got swarmed, and it wasn't even like mosquitoes. It was like these small little like beetle things that just kind of like sit on you. They don't do anything. They just kind of, go towards you. But yeah, they were more than annoying. Let's put it that way on Friday.
Well, speak of annoying things, one of the annoying things when you may be traveling is if you have a loose receiver hitch in the back of your truck. And that is what our presenting sponsor, Hitch Harness, specializes in. We want to thank Tire Hall out of Furlow, Minnesota for supporting us on the podcast over the last couple of years. Head over to hitchharness.com and check out the products they have, including the single and double style receiver hitch harness. You can also check out the other products they have, including pole bar brackets and chassis dollies, whatever you may need to help alleviate your work in the shop. And so thank you, as always, Tyler, for the support of the podcast. Hopefully you get a little bit more racing in this summer, as it's been really busy with the kids and everything for him this year. And so the lineup is the same as last week, minus Becca. Of course, Jessup on the pole, followed by myself and John. So Jessup, how are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. All things considered, I am looking forward to an exciting weekend of racing, even if there are questionable things in line.
Like bugs?
Bugs and other useless things that sit there and do nothing.
Well said. John, how are you doing besides your bug issue from Friday?
I'm doing great. We actually had a pretty good weekend weather-wise for racing and for the tracks that we attended this weekend.
Well, at least you
Um
did.
I know Mason will go into more detail here for his schedule, but unfortunately, a lot of tracks this weekend got hit with those pop-up random showers and thunderstorms that happened, and it was more of a just a nuisance, an annoyance over this weekend with a lot of that weather. But no, besides that, I'm looking forward to this weekend. We're going to be local. We're going to be staying at home for the Governor's Cup this weekend, and Governor's Cup in Mandan. It's always kind of one of those shows that I kind of look forward to each year. It's a good break between the first half of the racing season and kind of that good break before we hit the month of August with season championship points and a lot of drivers getting prepared for the year-end specials, and then we hit special season. So kind of a nice little break right in between there. And I always look forward to Governor's Cup weekend because it's kind of one of those weekends where we can kind of get everybody together in one spot before we hit specials.
Yeah, definitely. I'm bummed out that I missed Gov Cup every single year the last few years because I'm over in Wisconsin. I was just checking the forecast just to see what shenanigans could happen. 5% chance of anything for the 3 days I'm looking at. So it's
Yeah, but
gotten to the point. It's gotten to the point in the
Mason,
season where I don't even trust that anymore.
Mason, with you around and with Kayla
Anything's
being there as
possible.
well, this anything could be possible. I mean, we have seen the powers of the Rain Man Mason and Hurricane Kayla.
Well, there's only one person who can has successfully defended them,
True.
and
Yep.
I will fight them off for you, people. But there's a
We've seen it.
price.
We have seen it down in several tracks, but for sure this year at one track, he has fought them off.
Yeah, we definitely could have used another battle royale heading into this weekend because it was uber frustrating. But I did manage to get 4 nights of racing in somehow with all the
Oh no,
shenanigans.
only 4 nights of racing?
Only 4 nights, yeah.
And you know what's even the best part about this whole thing is that I hate seeing tracks get rained out, but when the tracks got rained out, I actually got to visit with Mason at a racetrack because the next 2 weekends were weekends that we were not going to see each other at racetracks. So Jessup, you got to spend Thursday with him, and I got to
Hmm.
spend Saturday with him as well at a racetrack. Plus, I gave him some candy to keep him, happy.
He did. It was great.
Well, I
He
just
gets the right color fruities too.
true.
Yeah, you got to get the right ones.
Well, John, you see, I just figured with the IRA coming up from Wisconsin and Illinois, I had to go defend them from the Rain Man himself starting on Thursday. So you guys all owe me one. I'll let you pass with a freebie.
Well, before we get into the show, I want to give a shout out to a couple of the listeners. I know Casey Usadis always listens to us. We were talking a bunch about the podcast this weekend down in Aberdeen for the time we were down there. And also shout out to Chris Folk Jr. We didn't give him a shout out for his first career win a couple weeks back.
We forgot. Yeah, we needed to because that was his first one ever in the Minnesota Street Stocks, which is pretty
Yeah,
cool.
no, I appreciate you listening, Chris. Congratulations on the win. That's a long time coming. He's been really close on getting that. So that was down in Wishick, Thursday of the fair races, I believe.
Yes, because you guys went down on Friday of the fair.
Yep.
Was when the three of you, um, Hurricane, Rain Man, and Jessup were all in one spot.
Jessup needs a nickname. We got to come up with a nickname.
I'm Mr. Dakota Dirt.
But it doesn't sound like super heroic in a sense. You know what I mean? You
I've
need like
always
a
thought he could
hero
be the
sounding name.
well, I always thought maybe he could be the king of ketchup.
Oh, that is royalty. Peasants.
Anyways, if you're a listener or watcher, be sure to follow the Trackbackers podcast on Facebook. If you're a listener, Spotify, Google, and Apple is where you can find us. We greatly appreciate the support from all of you out there. And with that, we will officially start episode 19 with the waving of the green flag with who or what are you repping? Holster, you can start this off once again, Mr. Jessup Pelkey.
Well, I pulled this one out from the tote, the giant tote. It is a Pfeiffer Racing a t-shirt. It's very nice. It's actually pretty plain, very simple. It has sponsors on the back. Just a nice little outline of the 11, gray, black, and red. Very nice, clean, crisp looking race shirt that any race fan could wear to just about any track and feel confident and stylish.
I like the color red, honestly.
It is a
Kind of
Yeah,
good color.
pops.
I was gonna say too, because I think about like Justin Vogel last year had the pink shirts with the cancer scheme that he had on last year. And they always stood,
Mhm.
those stood out in the stands, and they were kind of just the simple like number on the front, and they had sponsors on the back. But like, if you like, that's almost like a cheap way to have like a nice, easy printout for shirts that just stand out in the crowd. Like, if you had a bunch of those shirts, they'd stand out in an instant.
I agree, Mason.
Yeah, nice looking shirt, Jessup. I think I have a shirt like that as well somewhere. Or did
Yeah, you
yeah.
gave it to me.
I would say I think I gave it to you actually because I
That is
didn't
the
think
shirt.
That's awesome.
I'm like that shirt looked really familiar. That makes sense.
Look at
Hey,
you go, Mason. Sharing is caring.
well,
I
I
am
got a
caring
bunch of
so
other shirts I
much.
could probably share too. John, who or what are you repping?
Okay, so I actually got this shirt during the kids' night over in Jamestown, and I have a version of it, but now I got the second version of it, which is kind of nice. So I am wearing the 913 Racing and Graphic shirt of
Oh,
Dustin Erickson and Andy Cap. So I have the blue one of this, and now I have the black one as well. So their cars are on the back, so I'll turn around here really quick so you guys can see. So on the back are both the Street Stock and also the IMC modifier. I don't know if you guys
I
can see
can't
both
hear
of
a
them.
word he's saying.
I can hear him. I can.
He's mumbling.
But that's usually part of being
He's
an
really
announcer.
mumbling.
I mean, you have to kind of have the, rah 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 in you a little bit. So, but otherwise, with this shirt though, I got it from Andy. Andy was giving out these shirts over there during kids' night, and had my size ready for me, and it was a welcome gift.
You see, Mason, Kayla only likes to go after the candy toss for one or two pieces of candy. John goes and bulldozes kids over to get free t-shirts.
I actually got three of them that night
I mean, you
during
could have
the
gotten
kids'
like
night.
a bunch of shirts that night.
So I literally did. I just went around and drivers handed me shirts. So see, the reason why I went around and got these shirts is because the drivers, first of all, actually came up to me. Some of them did to give me the shirts as well. Plus, they know me my name. So something that I would know that Becca would be very impressed with.
You know
And
when this all started, Mason? This guy got him into the pits one day.
And it's
yeah,
been it's been history ever since. I mean, Jessup and I will walk around the pits and we'll go,
Nobody
we'll
knows
go.
me. They all know
Nobody,
John.
this is so
The
true.
guy who pulled the 300 at Nationals.
So yeah,
I'm like,
I get called out
yeah,
for
you
stuff,
can
and
tell his head's reflecting off of everything. He uses a
it was a
fine bowling ball
it was
chamois to shine it
it
up
was a
real nice.
spotlight on me. There's always a spotlight.
oh gosh.
Uh,
Anyways, nice shirt. You almost scared me because I almost thought you were wearing a similar shirt to me, but you are not, thankfully. Um, wearing a Trent Greger hat again. Would love to see him back out at the racetrack. I don't know what he's up to these days.
Yeah, he's only raced what once local this year, I think, over at the Red River Valley Speedway back in, was it June that he raced? But
Yeah, just once. So I don't know if he's busy with farming or family or what it may be, but would love to see him back out at the track again. New koozie. They had a meet and greet at the go-kart track, and Kenyon Racing, this is one of the go-kart families out there. And so they were handing out koozies and candy and carts. So what the heck? Might as well rep it for the podcast. And then I have another youngster that I am repping for this week, and this is actually a shirt I also got at Jamestown's Kids Night, is Caden Davenport in the number 29 slingshot.
that's kind of cool.
that's a
Yeah,
really nice shirt.
yeah. And they were just handing them out.
Neat.
So yeah, no, the Davenport family was one of the first ones up there actually that night for the kids' night, and Hayden's been over there twice in his slingshot. I know he's running for points over in Dickinson too, and it's looked really, really, really good with that slingshot. So hope to see him over in Jamestown more this year. And I know with his dad heavy in racing, the family as a whole heavy in racing. Um, it'll be very, very, very interesting as he moves up into the divisions because I could see him get into a hobby stock, in a couple of years, potentially get into legends and even move up any farther with that with his dad Terry running a lot of classes throughout his racing career and currently in both the Dakota Speedway hobby stocks as well as the IMCA hobby stocks.
Yeah, and he's at his last three races, all wins. So
Yeah.
very good season for Keaton Davenport. And so that is who or what we are repping for episode 19. And we will move into our hot sauce, hot memory rewind. Thank you to Isaac Hot Sauce Sandro for supporting us on the podcast once again this year. Unfortunately, his car is done for the year. I don't know if he's going to have his new one that he's got in the works out towards the end of the year. Probably just taking some time off with well, if you're friends with anyone up in mine, now the fair's kind of taken over everything. And so it's all a hullabaloo with that. But if you see Isaac in the pits, you're able to stop by his trailer, be sure to tell him hi. Check out the Sandro Snack Shack, all the Sandro Snack Shack, and all the goodies that they have there. And thank you, as always, Isaac, for supporting us on the podcast. What do you got for us
It
this
sounds like
week, Jessup?
it sounds
Well,
like
we
Mason that
know.
Isaac might be maybe you're gonna wait for the mod until maybe next year, depending on how his schedule looks, because I know they're expecting as well. So congratulations to him and his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And but it sounds like he might be running maybe a stock car here or there throughout the rest of the year. So that'd be kind of cool to see him in a different racing division as well.
Yeah, love me some stock cars. So more the merrier.
Hmm. Well, we know the rules. John, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. So we got three cars. You got to name the driver and the year. All from the same year. And ready? Now here comes number one.
7W. Guess if you should zoom out just a little bit.
Yeah.
There you go. That's good. Right there.
I mean, there's so much
7W.
color to that car and a lot of sponsors to kind of try to guess off of, but
I wanted to stop John.
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Nathan?
the only 7W I know is Ricky Weiss, but it's definitely not him.
It is none
Let's see.
other than Monty Wald.
No way I would have guessed that.
Oh,
I
is that,
know.
I don't recognize that name.
Just picking up some wild old ones to stump you.
Oh yeah, he upped the difficulty. I forgot he was going to try to do that this week.
Oh,
They're
okay. That
making it
makes
too
more sense because
easy.
I was like, I don't remember this one.
All right, ready for number two.
Is that an 8?
That is an eight. This is kind of a weird one here. Any
Uh,
guesses? I will give you a hint. This is a World of Outlaw driver.
it's Brent Larson.
It is Brent Larson.
Wow.
I'm going to count this as a stumped.
Well, I'm
What do
stoked.
you
All
mean
right.
stumped? I just
You
said it was
got
Brent
stumped.
Larson.
After I gave you a very easy hint,
I've actually seen the car before.
but you didn't know who it was. Hence making John 0 for 2 tonight. Coming up
Hmm.
on number three.
Okay, let's look. Steve Larson.
No.
I have no clue.
This is Jay McDonald.
Really?
Yep,
Boy, the 19 actually looks like Steve's kind of number
19.
Yeah, it does.
It's the
placement.
numbered lettering, kind of, but the J should give you the J McDonald. But that also looks like a duct tape J, so that's that was the best of times and the worst of times for you.
Okay, so let's think here really quick. So year. What are we thinking for year?
I want to say like 99.
Mason, I'm right there with you. I think it's also 99.
It is 1998.
Mm,
Ooh, we're close.
You are
close.
very close. So,
We're very close.
not a horrible job, you guys, on a tough night. The photo conditions were rough. Very
Jo-
Okay,
characteristic.
John,
Mason,
you
do
want
you
to
have
go
your photo?
next?
I was gonna say, do you have your photos ready? Do you want to do
Mine.
your first one?
Let's do yours because I share my screen on mine.
Okay.
That is a car. Uh,
I have a guess. Do you have a guess, Jet?
say it,
Jessup?
mate. I do, but I can't think of their name.
I want to say Dale Skitland.
I was going to say Skitlin.
Mason is correct. It is Dale Skitland.
Thank you, Mason.
So that's the first one.
That is also a car.
Oh, come on. I think Jessup, you should get this one.
Tell me, Mason.
I think that's Kelly Horner.
Mason is correct again.
That's who I was gonna say, but I didn't want to say the wrong number.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. And who do you guys think this is?
I think I know this one too.
Say it, Mason. Go
Corey
3 for 3.
Seekerson.
It's not Corey Seekerson.
Ah, dang it. Is it Kelly?
It is Kelly Seekerson.
Thank you.
I will go
Yep.
with Kelly Seekerson, John.
Kelly and Corey used to run streets back in the day. Kelly was the number 8 and Corey was the 77, and they were both top contenders at several tracks throughout the upper Midwest. So they ran Jamestown because they were both from Jamestown quite a bit. And then they ran Dakota Speedway for several years. And then they used to go over to Red River Valley Speedway as well as Lisbon down at the Cheyenne
Hmm.
Speedway.
Try to think. The last time I saw Kelly race, he was in a Midwest mod though, right?
Yeah, he was in a Midwest mod. And it's been several years since I've seen him.
Yeah. Okay. I got two more. The first one should be pretty easy.
Okay, Justin, who do you think it is?
Who's the
Zero car.
zero? The mid only zero I really think that comes. Oh, is that a Gartner car? That's not a Gartner car. That's a Monte Carlo. It's not a. It's not. Hmm.
Think of Zero from Minot.
Robbie?
Hmm?
Hmm.
That is Robbie Roselli.
I was thinking more of the Jamestown zero with
Wait, Elton?
yeah,
I forgot to check the year on this one.
I was gonna
19.
say, I didn't have the years on mine.
Yeah, I know what album I got it from, but I just can't remember what it was. But all right, this is the trickier one.
11. Ooh,
11 sprint car.
sprint car. Should know this.
That looks like a
But
Shurik number.
this is before my time. What
John
shirt
is
is it?
John is on the right track, and this driver
I
still
wouldn't know
races
this.
today.
Nick.
It is Nick Shirk.
Mhm.
I would not know that. That was right slightly before my time, but the only shirt I know is Nick.
Yep, Nick drove the number 11 while Chris drove the number
Chris
1.
drove the 1. And
Huh,
Jessup, Nick was in Jamestown on Saturday.
I know. I saw. And I was not. And I was sad.
It's
But
okay.
also not.
We beat the weather.
Barely.
Barely. Barely. Like barely.
Yeah, so that is it. That's it for the Hot Sauce Hot Memory Rewind, and we will get right into the track pack report. 4 straight nights of racing for us combined, and we start with Thursday, the King of the Wings over in Norman County Raceway with the bumper to bumper Irish sprints versus the NOSA sprint cars at IMCA Race Saver 305s and Lightning sprints. So Jessup, you decided to make a trip out east. What were your takeaways?
Well, it was good to see a bunch of sprint cars. And I would say there was a lot of cars for only 3 classes at the Norman County Raceway. Um, the IRA is always kind of a close memory to home for me because they're from my home area. And it's fun to see them come out and compete with the best that we have and the best that they have. So it's kind of a fun little deal. Um, as far as the night went, uh, there's some fun surprises throughout the night. The Eisenstein girls looked pretty solid. And then with picking up a heat win and holding their own in one of their dash, but then when they got monster trucked coming out of the 4 wide, that was kind of interesting. But it was fun to watch their pit crews go flying into action and getting. I think it was Layla, right? Or was it Amelia?
It was Layla, yep.
It was fun to see them get Layla back on the track for the feature. Um, Qualifying, old fashioned qualifying for the 410s. I'm a traditionalist when it comes to that aspect of sprint car racing, so I enjoyed that. It was fun to see who could actually score a good time. The track was kind of treacherous in the feature. You had to be very careful working the throttle. Um, on the high side of 3 and 4. And then the leader eventually lost control. I think it was Jake Newman lost it going off of 2 as
Yep.
well. So definitely a treacherous little track, but Mark Dobmeyer did a great job of racing and to the conditions that were um, presented to him, whereas the IRA guys of Scott, the big wheel Scotty Thiel and Jake Newman kind of had some mishaps with that, and both were pretty far ahead when that happened. But overall, really nice night of racing there. Um, 305s, they were them and the lightning sprints turned into a bit of a caution fest, and I believe they say cautions breed cautions or cautions cause cautions. And yeah, there were a lot.
Yeah, there were.
And yeah, there's things that were interesting about the cautions. They were like unnecessary and some not by the track's perspective. They had to throw the caution for them, but I it's like they were so antsy to get going that they were making stupid mistakes. And that carried all the way up to the 4 wide in the 410s, where Jake Hartman ran over um, Layla's front end and nose wing. So that was definitely interesting, especially the screaming match that Steve Sinclair received from Austin Hartman's mom, I believe.
Oh man, I
And
forgot about that. Yeah.
you could hear her screaming across the pits, and Mason was all worried about finding cards and other things, and I was all like, "Oh, this seems interesting." So I wandered down and sat there and listened to Steve get screamed at, and yeah, that was um, it was intriguing to say the least.
Yeah, you could hear her all the way at the other end. I will say that.
So
Yeah.
those were my takeaways from it. I think honestly, Scotty probably could have won if he just had him over pushed the limits of the cushion coming out of 4. And same with, I think Jake would have had just a smidge harder time to holding Mark back as I think Mark was running, finding the groove to the track really, really well as the feature went on. But there were a lot of cautions and there were a lot of cars. So,
Yes. So this was the first time sprint 410 sprint cars were back in Norman County in 4 years, from what I saw.
mhm.
And they had 36 of them. So very good quality field of cars as well. 15 lightning sprints and 12 race saver 305s. And so going through the results real quick here. In the lightning sprints, it was Matthew Taves going +6 to get the win. Very young driver too. He's been racking up wins this year and the last, and so very
Didn't the
good.
leader flip?
I don't remember if it was Haugerberg leading at that point, but yeah, I think he was going for the lead and hit a tractor
I
tire
thought
and
he had the lead and hit the tractor tire and either spun or flipped.
well, and it was the weirdest flip ever because usually you see him flip side to side, and this he hit the tire, went backwards, and then it like went on his
Yep,
tail fin and flipped.
yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was weird. I'm like, okay, that's an interesting flip. But Matthew Taves with the win in the lightning sprints. 305s is actually a really good race at the end. We had a lot of cautions there too. We had Ty Wilkie, I think, dominating that race until Brady
Brady does.
Donahue and Jacob Peters were kind of making some hay on him. And Brady made the pass with just a few laps to go around the high side. Very, I think Jacob threw a slider on him when he was in second that almost took them both
Oh, that
out.
was a bad one.
I was like, we always end up with two sprint cars right off into the weeds. That was really a close slider, but they got through it clean. Brady Donahue in the 34 double D got the win in front of Ty Wilkie and Jacob Peterson. And then in the 410s, like Jessup alluded to, Mark Dobmeyer got the win from fifth in front of Jake Blackhurst, who has probably my favorite looking sprint car scheme that I've seen this year. Very nice looking car. And then
Mason wouldn't
Christopher,
stop talking about it.
oh man, it was so great. It wasn't even pink, John. That's the thing.
It was blue and
Nice.
black.
it had the right color blue though. It's got to be that baby blue type color. And then Christopher Thrum was third, and I believe he set quick time on the night.
Yeah,
Um,
it's tram.
Tram, Thrum, I heard like multiple pronunciations, so I don't know what it is. Well, it was definitely an entertaining night at Norman County. It was a late night. We got back, I think, at like to 12:30, 12:45 to Fargo,
Yep,
and I almost hit two deer with a rental.
I saw them.
Yeah, that split second after I saw that, I'm like, geez, here we go again.
Mike Mason, deer.
Yeah,
There's a deer. Go around.
this
Go
was
around.
he was waking up mid slumber and he saw the deer as after I saw them, John. Um,
Wow.
yeah. Anyways, moving on to Friday's racing action. I will kick it over to John and Jessup. I don't know how much of the racing action you saw on Friday in Dakota Speedway, but talk to us about what happened then.
Well, let me tell you, Mason, the makeup features were wild and crazy and part demo derby.
And entertaining, to say the
It
least.
was entertaining. Not the demo derby part. I don't like seeing our
Yeah.
drivers wreck their cars.
Especially in
But
the hobbies, though. The hobbies had a lot of beating and banging a little bit.
mm,
They were actually pretty clean to start the feature, but towards the end,
well, one spin out kind of put a kibosh for a handful of people that night.
I agree. Okay,
So,
so let's go through it then. So we started off the night with our makeup features. We had the makeup features from the 28th of June. So we're going to be doing those over like three race nights. So we started with the hobbies and we had the IMC modifies. Those were the makeup features on this past Friday night. And the hobby stock feature was kind of a race of attrition a little bit. There was a lot of overheating that seemed like it was happening during that race. And then unfortunately we lost some engines. Seth Keller, I believe, blew his motor up very early in that feature event, and he was done for the night, unfortunately. And Seth was sitting up there pretty high in points too, just with the win that he had on opening night when we opened the season here for 2024 at Dakota Speedway. And then Dylan Sandberg blew something as well. I think he blew maybe a radiator hose. I could be wrong on that, but I think it was a hose on the radiator that he ended up blowing because he all of a sudden just started overheating too, when steam came off and he slowed down out of turn two. He was pretty much kind of in control of that feature event, and he had Joseph Weiss behind him. 15 lap feature. It was the makeup feature for the Mary Vetter Challenge. They went caution after Dylan couldn't get the car back to the pits on the back straightaway. And that gave the lead then over to Joseph Feist, who was looking for his first ever feature win in any division that he's raced over at the Dakota Speedway in. And he held off the likes of a hard charging Brody Michelson. Brody picked up his first win down in Wishick on Thursday, just the night before. And he looked really good. He was right in the rear bumper. He kind of threw one last run at Joseph Feist out of turn four on the last lap, and that's when it kind of went bad for him. He lost it in front of the field. At the same time, Jeremy Hare took evasive action and lost it in front of the field as well. Those two drivers were in the top five. And unfortunately, Terry Davenport didn't have anywhere to go. Got into the front end of Jeremy Hare, but really plowed into the left front of Brody Michelson. And it sounds like unfortunately Michelson's frame is bent, and I think that car might be done in the 18 machine. So tough break because he went from being a hero on Thursday night to having a wrecked race car on Friday while running second and going for another future win. But congratulations, Joseph Feist. First ever hobby stock win. And that was pretty cool to see from him as he's second year in that car and he's improved a bunch. And the car has a great color blue paint scheme with a very nice number that you could see as plain as day from the announcer's tower. And congratulations to him. He's looked very good this year over at Mandan. Then we moved into the mods, and the mod make a feature was one of the more entertaining races I think of the whole entire night because we had several drivers that were up front. We had Jacoby Trout and Chris Pittenger. Those two drivers were battling hard to begin the feature event. Jacoby led actually, I think, the first 10 plus laps in that feature event. Until they kind of had some of the veterans coming through the field. Quentin Kinsley, before the mod tour, he was kind of on a hot streak in Mandan. He had picked up two feature wins back to back, and he took the lead, and he kind of was gone. He stretched it out to like a 2 second advantage over the field, and then Sean Strand picked up second, and In the matter of only a couple laps, Sean caught Quentin. He caught him really quick. So those two battled up front a little bit, and Quentin ended up holding off for the win, and had a great feature win again. That was his third one in a row, excluding the Mod Tour over there in Mandan. And yeah, so Quentin has looked very good. Unfortunately, he had some problems on opening night. So when you look at the point standings, Quentin was down a little bit, but he keeps inching his way right up towards that front battle. So Quentin had his third in a row in the mods. And then we started the regular racing program.
That's a lot of racing already taking place on
It was
this
it
night.
it was a lot of racing action before we even started, and we had over 100 cars in the pits on Friday. And then we'll kind of go through your results here for each one of the classes as we, hit kind of the regular feature events. And in the regular feature events, it was kind of an entertaining battle up front because in your sport compact race, it was kind of the battle between Zach Eubanks and Chris Yost and Alex Thompson. It was like, kind of the who's who of sport compacts kind of in the North Dakota area currently. And Alex didn't have a very good heat race. Something that looked like it was off in that car in the heat race. Well, I think he did get lapped or almost got
Yeah, he
lapped.
got
One
lapped.
of the two in there. And just struggled in the heat race, but he definitely picked it up in the feature. Alex was right there battling for the lead and the win, and it was Zach. Zach Eubanks picked up another feature win over at the Dakota Speedway Mandan. So he's had a kind of a hot streak over at Mandan too with feature wins. So congratulations to Zach on a well-earned feature win over there in the Dakota Speedway. In your hobby stock division, it was kind of redemption for the night. And the redemption, what I mean by that is that Dylan Sandberg kind of started more towards maybe the middle of the package and got a feature, picked up the feature win. He was kind of dominating that makeup feature and had the car problems and was able to come back and get the car fixed. And then he actually had problems in his heat again. Something was also not quite correct in the heat, and they got it fixed before the feature, and he picked up the feature win. So congratulations to Dylan over there in the hobbies. Dylan doesn't run for points full time anymore within that division, but anytime he shows up in the 55, he's going to be tough to beat, and he's been very tough to beat so far this year at the Dakota Speedway. Derek Appert, your defending champion, was second. Preston Martin was third. Jeremy Harrell fourth, and John Gardner Jr. was in the top five. John Gardner Jr. led a majority of that feature race as well before Dylan got up there, and they had a great battle for the win. When you got to your Legends division, the Legends race was very entertaining. The cars were all over the track for the Legends feature event. It was kind of a very nice sight to see for your Legends as they've been putting on some great shows over at all the tracks this year, but especially in Mandan too. We had a healthy field of over 35 cars in attendance too, and Gage Madler kind of snookered his brother a little bit. Noah Madler had picked up the lead with just several laps remaining, and they took a restart. And Donovan and Noah were battling pretty hard for the front. Donovan Weist and Noah Madler, and Gage kind of stuck underneath both of them and got the lead with a few laps remaining and held off all the challengers behind him. So it was Gage winning, Noah in second. Donovan was in third. Preston Martin passed Bryce Barnhart at the line for fourth, and Bryce finished in the top five. So Legends right now super competitive over at the Dakota Speedway in Mandan with even the championship points battle. That's pretty close over there within your Legends division. In your stock cars, I want to say the stock cars on Friday night was the race. How do I put this correctly? It was the race that was really good, but could have been 10 times better. And what I mean by that is that it was mirrored by cautions.
Ooh.
Every single time it seems like there was a great battle shaping up front, there was a caution. So the Stock Car Feature event was still a really nice race to watch. You had a couple veteran drivers up there up front. You had a father-son duo up there up front. And then you had a couple of the hobby stock guys that have kind of, transitioned into the stock car class for this year that have been kind of dabbling with some of their stock cars. They were right up front too. So in the end, Marlon Seiler picked up his first career stock car feature win in the seven machine. And he looked really good on Friday night. He went from eighth to first. Sean Strand, who picked up the big win over the Dakota Classic Modified Tour, finished in second. And then it was Jared Carter and Todd Carter that were battling hard for fourth and fifth. Jared got around Derek Appert and finished in third. Only his second night in that car.
Yep.
So that was kind of cool to see. Very nice paint scheme on that 91 machine too. And then Derek Appert was in fourth and Todd Carter finished in the top five. So really good battle up there. But yeah, you had some players up there that kind of had some tough luck. You had Hunter Domagala up front that had tough luck. Ended up going to the pits with two cautions being called on him. Scott Gardner was running in the top three using the high line. Scott was probably one of the fastest ones on the high side, lost to by his lonesome over in turns 1 and 2, and then pulled into the infield as well. But right now for your stock car points in Mandan, it's tightened up. There was about a 11-point gap going into the night between first and second, and then third through about seventh were only about 5 points apart. Well, with the way the feature finishing positions were on Friday night, that gap has closed. It's about 5 points now for the points lead. So it's definitely tightening up for points over there in your stock cars. In your modifieds, they concluded the night. And it was kind of another redemption story, and it was with Colin Hibden. Colin came over on Friday night for the makeup feature. Had problems with the makeup feature, finished I think 16, 17, somewhere in that range in the makeup feature. He was a reason for a caution with only a couple laps remaining. So he restarted tail end, didn't move very much through the field with only I think we only had 2 or 3 laps to go during the makeup feature earlier in the night. Well, Colin got redemption as he basically was the class of the feature field on Friday night in the regular IMSA modified feature event as he held off the likes of Mark Dahl, Marlon Seiler, Jeremy Keller, and Sean Strand, and picked up a Dakota Speedway win in that 48K machine. Mark Dahl was second. Mark's having a very nice season in that one machine, as he's right there in the thick of the points battle. Marlon Seiler third, Sean Strand fourth, Quentin Kinsley in fifth, and Jeremy Keller in sixth. I have to give a shout out to Sean Keena. Sean Keena had his first night in his IMCA modified. It's a brand new car for him as he wrecked his sport mod. Got the IMCA modified. Started 17th in the feature in a pretty stacked field of IMCA modified drivers over in Mandan and finished seventh. And he kept that car clean. He didn't basically kind of defer from his line. He kind of ran the middle to the bottom. At one point, him and Quentin Kinsley were going at it for six. That was kind of cool to see with that. But no, Sean looked really good in his heat race, and he looked even better in the feature. So I'm excited to see what Sean can do in that X machine because he's still getting his feet wet in the big mods. So he finished right up there in the seventh spot within your IMC modifieds. But yeah, so that overall, it was a little bit of a longer night with all the cautions over Amanda and all the stuff that we had going on as part of intermission and makeups, but overall a very, very nice night of racing action.
When it sets the stage for a big weekend coming up in Mandan, which we'll touch on in just a little bit.
Correct.
Well, and on Friday night, I was down in Brown County Speedway in Aberdeen for the first of two scheduled nights for the Dakota Rumble, with the Dirt Race Central Street Stock Tour on hand, and then the NLRA late models coming down for the Dakota Rumble. And just those two classes on hand, and very good field in both of those classes, 38 street stocks and 37 late models. So definitely a good amount of cars for both of those. I was actually pleasantly surprised with the car counts in both of those classes. And so street stocks were the first out on the track, 25 laps. Jessup, you mentioned that there was an issue in the four wide at Norman County. We also kind of had that same issue happen. We had a car almost get squeezed into the inside wall, and Clay Genskow rammed into the back of it. Not his fault, but yeah, had some little fireworks before the green flag flew. But yeah, it happens. We were hoping for redemption on night two, but unfortunately that didn't happen. But it was a good race, had a couple of early cautions, and then they ran the last 19 laps, green flag to the finish. And Justin Vogel, who hasn't had a tour win up to this point in 2024, kind of hard to believe, he got out to the lead in front of Billy Christ early. But the guy on the move was Kyle Bertram in the 19 from Dallas, South Dakota. He started sixth, tracked down Vogel running the high side, made a slider with about 5 or 6 laps to go, took the lead, and then Vogel actually got him back about a lap and a half later to reclaim the lead. And he held off one last charge from Kyle to get his first tour win of 2024. Bertram hung on to second. Andy Rosso, big, strong local out there, finished third, followed by Matt Goff. And Kyle Dykoff, the tour points leader, from 14th up to 5th. Also, shout out to Chris Sayre, won the B main from 22nd, or started 22nd, finished 7th at the end. And then you get to the late models, and if you haven't seen that race, it was interesting in more ways than one. We started 25 and finished with 11, and I think about 8 of them got taken out on lap 1. We had I think it was Dustin Strand and Mitch Johnson got together coming out of 4 on turn 4, and it stacked up the field. It was almost a track blocker. Like, it almost blocked up the entire track all the way from the inside wall to the fence. Thankfully, everyone was okay, but definitely a lot of torn up equipment on that. And so once we kind of got that cleaned up, there were still quite a few cautions early. So they were kind of sorting through the first few laps. Matt Gilbertson got out to the lead after just a few laps. They were starting to get around to lap traffic, and unfortunately for Matt Gilbertson, I think Greg Friese was trying to pull off the track, and Matt just absolutely rear-ended him going down the backstretch, and so that knocked him out of contention from the lead. So then it turned into a battle between Josh Skorcheski and Dustin Strand, which Strand got around Skorcheski, but then lap traffic once again, he tried to pull a slider on Mitch Johnson, and they got together and took those two out. And so it was like the race that you really didn't want to lead, or just a weird. I think it was a full moon. I think Becca warned us about this on Friday that there was a full moon, and I think that was wreaking havoc on the late models. So then Skorcheski trying to hold on to lead with Mike Gresseth charging hard towards the end. They got to the white flag while the car was spun out in turn two. Gresseth had made the pass, but unfortunately they went back on that caution to the green-white checkered. And so as Josh was able to retake the lead and hang on for the feature win on Friday night in the late models. And so Gresseth ended up with second, Deborah Nickerson from 13th to third, Roy Schaffgruben 17th to fourth, and Chase Gelling 15th to fifth. And so that was your Friday night at Brown County Speedway. Was supposed to be the first of two nights. We had a fun time at the Wiley Park Thunder Road with the street stock guys. We had a bunch of go-kart racing with the fans and people there, and it was a great time in the afternoon. Headed over to the track about 4 o'clock, I want to say, and we had a pop-up storm pop up right over the track. And it downpoured for about 15 to 20 minutes, just absolutely soaked the pits in the track. It was a mess. And so unfortunately they had to cancel, which the frustrating part is you go like 2 miles to the east, completely bone dry. It was just wrong place at the wrong
Even
time.
downtown.
Yeah.
Like even if you went downtown in Aberdeen, it was probably still dry. So yeah, it was just wrong place, wrong time.
Yep. And so that was kind of a frenzy when they were trying to figure out if they were going to call the race or not. And then we had some drivers that were like, hey, Jamestown's still racing. So I kind of will transition over to you, John, because I assume at that point, Tim and Allison were probably getting some calls from the drivers.
Yeah, so you had sent a text over to me. It was probably right around 5:10, maybe 5:15, somewhere in that range. And Becca and I were just pulling into Jamestown right around that time frame. And you said, "Hey, we canceled down here. This sounds like some of the drivers are going to come up to Jamestown." And at that same time, I had pulled into the track, and Kayla had called me. Kayla Colt had called me because she was down there with you in Aberdeen. And I know, guys, shocker, Aberdeen rained out with both Kayla and Mason in attendance. Um, as we went through, and Kayla's like, "Hey, there's drivers coming up. Can you make sure they get into the draw?" And I said, "Sure." I said, but the best thing is, I said, have somebody put on the Street Stock Tour page that to basically message the track or call the track and have them draw for it. Well, I talked to Tim. I ran into Tim as soon as we set up in Jamestown. I went into the pits side and I ran into Tim and I asked him, I said, "Hey," I said, "we're getting a lot of phone calls." And he said, "Yes, it was rapid fire. He had like six calls back to back to back to back right in a row with Street Stock Tour guys that were coming up. So they wanted to make sure they got into the draw. So what Jamestown did is that they put them into the draw. They knew the drivers weren't going to show up until around 7:20 to 7:30 just because of time frame to get up into that area. So they pushed the streets to do their heats last. So they kind of stalled a little bit at the opening of not part of the night too to basically make sure they had enough time to get there, get the cars unloaded, and get into their heats. So that part was nice. I know Kayla got to the track a little bit after 7. So she was up in the flag stand and she helped out, which was greatly appreciated there. And then I know Mason, you got there right around probably 7:40, 7:45-ish, somewhere in that range, is
Yep.
when you got to the track after closing down everything in Aberdeen. And I felt terrible for the Brown County Speedway because in those situations, you have had nice weather all day. You're ready to go racing. Everybody's there. They're excited. They're prepared. And then you have this unexpected shower pop up and it just sits there. I mean, it didn't move. That was the part that was the hard part. There's nothing you can do in that situation.
Yeah.
It's like track's ready to go. You don't expect there's going to be anything, and then it just downpours. So I've been involved in numerous situations with that other tracks too, and it's the worst feeling in the world because you're prepared, you're ready to go, you're excited, you're at there, and then it just happens, and there's nothing you can do about it. So tough break for them. Felt really bad for that, especially with the tour race being there, and then obviously the Rumble. So the drivers came up and it was kind of interesting to watch because we started the program at 7 o'clock up in Jamestown. Track was pretty tacky. Track was pretty tacked up the whole entire night, and I think humidity helped out with that. And honestly, they didn't have to really touch the track a whole lot throughout the night. They kind of kept the track the way it was. It was pretty racy, especially for the IMC modified heats. Those heats were very entertaining because you had last corner, last lap passes in both heat races, which was kind of cool. John Nord passed for the win in his heat race on the final lap. And then John Carell kind of looked like the John Carell of old and went to the high side in his heat race and blew past them in the last 2 laps. So he passed out of turn four, coming to the checkered flag too. So that was kind of neat to see. And then the street heats followed, and those heats were very competitive as well. But no, 25 street stocks total came up. About 10 of the tour guys, I think, were in attendance somewhere in that range, and that was kind of cool to see. Kind of a prelude. Mason and I talked throughout the night. It's kind of a prelude until the August 9th and 10th shows that are going to be over in Jamestown when we have the doubleheader for the street stock tour, which is going to be two big nights. I hope we have a
Mhm.
great car count there for the streets, and I think they're going to put on a really good show. And but overall, we'll kind of go through results of that too. And what we started with was we had the slingshots up first. It was Jackson Carroll picked up the feature win in that division over Aubrey Edinger in second. And the youngsters put on a good show there. They also got payouts again, so that was kind of nice to see that they've been getting some added money to the prize fund there for the slingshots because they usually race just for a trophy, but they've been kind of getting some extra prize money put in from some sponsors and donators over in Jamestown, which is kind of cool to see for the youngsters. Get them, more into racing action, and those are our future stars of the sport. Then we moved into the hobby stocks, and the hobby stocks were kind of interesting class too. They had 19 hobby stocks for the night, and it was Kelly Horner who picked up a very popular feature win, his first ever feature win in Jamestown in any division. So that was kind of cool to see. Kelly's had a lot of seconds this year. And the more interesting part, it wasn't his car. It was a borrowed car that he did it in. So Dylan Sandberg's car is who he used to pick up that feature win.
Which when I arrived there, I was super confused.
Oh, I was confused too because I didn't look at lineups right away with anything when I was walking through, and all of a sudden I saw Dylan's car moving in the pits. I was like, "Hey, Dylan's here tonight over in Jamestown." And Becca's like, "You haven't done your picks yet, have you, for fantasy?" I said, "No." She's like, "Kelly's running that car." I'm like, "Oh, that makes more sense because unfortunately Kelly blew his motor over in Mandan on the second feature on Friday night, and that ended his night, and he's in right in the thick of points battle over in Jamestown. So he wanted to make sure he got a car put together and got over there in Jamestown too." So Kelly picked up the win. Travis Ettinger was up there in second. Go ahead, Mason.
Yeah, you have to mention the happenings that happened during that feature
Oh,
race
yes.
too.
Yes. Jess, if you missed it, you would have enjoyed this part of the night. So, because it was very entertaining. Mason caught it on video. By the way, his videos are online now from Jamestown on Saturday night, too. So, during the feature event, it was very early, Mason. I think it was only a couple laps in. Bradley Stopworth, I don't know if something broke in the car or if he got a little bit of contact, but he Dukes of Hazarded right off of turns three and four. I mean, he had some airtime
Mhm.
and he landed up in the swamp, but he drove through the swamp.
Yay.
So he drove through the swamp carrying some, cattails behind him in the back end of the car and drove through it, turned around and was coming back out of the swamp, got right by the go-kart track and got stuck. So was almost out of the swamp and got stuck. So
Yeah.
Now,
yeah,
question. Did they throw a caution for him for being stuck in the swamp?
well, they threw a caution as soon as he kind of went flying off
Yeah, he
of
had some air.
of there. He got a lot of air. And then when he got that air, it was very entertaining to watch because he goes flying off, but then he kept driving it. And I was like, I don't think he's going to get stuck if he keeps driving it. Well, he kept driving it, and then he turned around to get back out. Yeah, that was a bad idea when he went close to like the go-kart track because there was like even like a more water over there from the rain this year that they've had, and it just all of a sudden you could see the car kind of went up and it went. Rump. You can see the water flowing. I was like, he's stuck. So they got him out pretty quickly though. Unfortunately, his feature was done because he went into the pits and he drove it in the pits. But he was still having his cattails at the back end of the car as he drove into the pits.
It
So
was
it,
kind of
it
a
was
comical sight.
it was comical. It was very interesting as part of the night. And then only a few laps later, um, Tanner Jacobson did the same thing over in turns one and two. He
Yeah.
Dukes of Hazzard it right over the top of turn one and almost got into the fence, kind of the hauler fence. We're over there right by the mid max scoreboard and stopped right before there. So, but luckily he was okay too. But he drove it back into the pits and had some flat tires that they were changing, and then went back to the trailer. So yeah, so luckily both drivers were okay, and it didn't look like the cars were too bad. But they definitely got some airtime. We definitely had some Dukes of Hazzard moments over in Jamestown on Saturday in your hobby stocks.
Hmm.
Yeah. Great way, well, with the slingshots and the hobby stocks to kick off feature action. And I know at this point we were watching the weather because we had some
Yes.
weather that was coming from Devil's Lake, which unfortunately got rained out with another pop-up storm right over them. And that system was coming down towards Jamestown at a pretty slow rate, but it was going to time out. There was going to be interesting to see if we are going to get the whole race night in.
Yeah, it was basically going to be, is the rain going to get there before or after 10? Because we kind of knew it was going to hit at some point. We just didn't know when. And it just kind of built and it just kind of sat there and it just kind of slowly migrated. So they got the Western Renegade non-wing sprint cars. So thank you to Miles Tomlinson and his group for coming over with the Western Renegades. That was kind of fun. Actually, they put on a really good show. And Mason, I think you would agree with that too, that
Hmm.
it was fun to watch them over on the high banks of Jamestown. They had 11 cars. And a very, very nice battle up front for the win.
Yeah, Eric Guyot and Ken Ron, a couple of the kind of out of area drivers that we see in the wingless sprints. They were definitely putting on a show. Ken was really trying to work that high side. He was
Yes,
making some ground on him. I think yeah, there was a caution or two that kind of wrecked the momentum, and Eric
there
was
was.
still able to maintain his line through the middle of the track. But big win for Eric Guyot out of Fanny Manitoba, holding off Ken Ron in the 46H, and then Chris Lewis from Grand Rapids also came over, and he was your top three finisher. And yeah, that I would love to see wingless sprints more at Jamestown because I think they put on a pretty good show there.
Yeah, they put on a really good show. They were top, bottom. They were they could use the whole entire track, even during the heat races and during hot laps. So that was fun to see. So yeah, they put on a really good show. So in a pretty quick feature event too. It wasn't something that took a long time and they were action packed. But yeah, I agree with you. It would have been very interesting with Ken if they would have had a few more green flag laps because they as soon as he would get a run, they would be caution. So so yeah, so that was kind of interesting feature.
Yep, and so then from there it was kind of go 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 for the rest of the features, starting with the Midwest Modifieds, and track was starting to show a little bit of character. I think starting in this feature race because there was a couple of ruts in the middle of one and two, and then a little bit of a bump through three and four, and so definitely made for some entertaining racing. And the first half of the Midwest Modified feature wasn't a ton of passing, kind of a lot of
Mhm.
people trying to make moves, but then kind of getting crossed up a little bit. And then we had like a restart with I want to say seven to go and they were
Yes.
single file because I think they started going single file just to try to like keep the race moving. Let's make sure we get all the races in. And at that point, I think Jaron Whipsay was sixth or seventh. And
He
within
was
one lap, he
sixth.
was in the lead.
Yeah, he was in sixth. Then he went to the high side on the restart, and he flew. He passed. He was in second by the time they hit coming out of turn number four, the next lap, and then he passed in one and two for the lead, and he walked away with a feature win. So
Yeah.
really good battle in second between Phil Chrislip and Aaron Michael, and Aaron picked up the second spot coming out of turn number four in the last lap. So congratulations to him. But yeah, but Jaron went to the high side, and when he saw that high side, he went. So he had been starting to work it before the caution came out, and then I think he kind of, worked it in and kind of blew it off a little bit over there. Especially in one and two, three and four, you could kind of use the high side kind of all night, but one and two was one of those where you had to kind of work it in, and he got it worked in, and he was gone after that.
Yeah. So big win for Jaron Whipsay. I think he won by over 5 seconds by the time the checker flew.
Yeah, and this was only with a few laps left of that future event when they went back green. So he just flew when he took the green after that. But and then Legends were up next.
Yep, and I think they only had one caution in that race, and another competitive battle. They only had 13 legend cars, which is kind of surprising with all the legends we have in the state. But that's 13 quality legends. I mean, they're all pretty dang
Hmm.
good drivers in that field, and turned into a battle with Ty Olson and Ryan Erdahl kind of going back and forth a little bit throughout the majority of that feature race. And Ty Olson kind of got the lead late, and then had to hold a last charge from Ryan Erdahl and Donovan Weiss, who's been seems like he's been racking up runner-up finishes lately. But Ty
Yes.
Olson, that was his first win in Jamestown. So big congrats out to Ty, holding off Donovan Weiss and Ryan Erdahl for the top three finishers. And Legends put on a great race as usual in Jamestown.
I think they only had one caution in that feature event, if I'm not mistaken, and yeah, they that was his fourth, so that was Ty's fourth win of the year at four different tracks. That's kind of cool to see, and Ty's 14, so he's still a youngster. He's not very old, and he's picked up four wins already this year, so that's kind of cool to see with what he's going to do here in the future.
Yep, and then moved in the street stocks, put them back in the normal spot in the running order, started all 25 of them, and was really intrigued to see how this race was going to go, especially with the full field and some drivers that you don't get to see on a regular basis. Had Andrew Hansen and Ty Egan from Wisconsin, and then a lot of the South Dakota drivers came up as well. And so Billy Chris got out to the front early. Ty Egan didn't take long to get to the front either, and it was 2-3 wide from there on back. It was a crazy race. They had a bunch of cautions, unfortunately.
Towards
Um,
the middle of the feature, they had cautions because towards the beginning, I think they ran like the first maybe 7 or 8 laps green,
yeah,
and then unfortunately Andrew Hansen broke. There was a little bit of contact and he broke in three and four, and that kind of caused a kind of a stack up that we eliminated, I think, what Mason right around 4 or 5 cars maybe in that wreck
yeah,
total wise, and nothing with I don't think really big damage by anybody, but just enough where a broken part where they couldn't continue. So that kind of put a damper in it because the battle up front was just getting really good between Billy Chris and Ty Agan right before that happened. Um, and
yeah,
then and then on that restart, it was a three wide battle right into turns one and two between Ty Agan, Billy Christ, and Greg Josie, and Billy got turned around, and that was where Greg went to tail end for the restart, and that's kind of where we had kind of a several cautions happen throughout the middle of that feature event, until they finally started kind of getting going, but besides that, Billy and Ty were going at it pretty much for
hmm
the lead. I don't really know, Mason, if they ever really made true contact per se when they were
I,
racing because they were pretty clean up front between the two of them. Um, and then unfortunately, I think what was it, maybe with about 4 laps to go, Ty looped it in turns
yep,
one and two.
yeah. He
So
hit the rut and spun.
yeah, Ty was trying to set it up. So Ty would kind of hit the rut. There was that rut like right on the bottom of one and two. He kind of hit the rut and then he would dive off of it. And so he threw the car in pretty sideways. Well, he missed it kind of a little bit and looped the car, unfortunately, with the way that it came across. So, but no, he would get a run with Billy down the back straightaway each and every time, and that's where he would try to get him set up for a pass.
Yep. So that kind of opened the door for Billy to kind of cruise on to the feature win, and the battle for second was fierce all the way to the end with USADAS and Grady Myers coming up from Winter, South Dakota, and Grady actually edged out the 2U at the line for second. So great run for Grady. I don't know if he's been up to Jamestown, maybe once or twice, but
Yeah, he's been in Jamestown twice before that I can recall. He was up there back in you guys are gonna laugh at me. 2013 when the doubleheader street stock days were happening over Labor Day when they used to have the $1,000 to win show for the Midwest mods on Saturday and the $1,000 to win show for the street stocks on Sunday. So Grady came up for that show that weekend back in 2013.
yep. So congratulations once again to Billy Christ on the street stock win. And then the IMCA modifieds finished off the program. I think as soon as the green flag flew, the temperature dropped like 10 degrees and the wind picked up like 15 to 20 miles an hour.
Yeah, and you could see the lightning to the north. As soon as like kind of towards the end of the streets, you could start seeing the lightning. And we knew that storm was coming. I mean, it was going to be pretty close. But yeah, Mason, that was very interesting because the wind picked up, temperature dropped. They still had about 15 laps left, and they went clean and green. Thank goodness they went clean and green because because they had no more cautions. Because I was like, if you guys have a caution, this might not end well. They might just call the race as a whole and get
Yeah.
people because they tried to get people out of there too after it ended. We didn't do victory lane. They wanted to make sure that everybody got to their cars, got home safely. The reason for that too is because luckily the storm wasn't severe by any means, so there was nothing from a severe thunderstorm warning or anything else on that thunderstorm. However, um, about maybe 15 miles north of Jamestown, they said it was raining so hard that you really couldn't see if you were on the interstate or on the road or anything else. So they wanted to get everybody kind of to a safe spot before that storm hit, and we took cover in the concessions when that storm hit too. We kind of lasted it out a little bit, and it downpoured. It was a really really heavy rain in Jamestown.
Yep. And so as far as the race went, John Nord got to the front pretty quickly. Eric Edwards kind of worked his way slowly to the front, kind of closing on towards the middle part of the race. But then John kind of hit the afterburners through lap traffic. Eric wasn't able to, I think he used up his tires in the middle part of the race. And John Nord, who's been fast at last couple weeks, got the feature win. Eric Edwards, one of the few times we've seen him out this year, in second. And Corey Seekerson, just off his first modified win, was third, and we Well, John had to stay through the storm. I got the heck out of there.
Yeah, Mason left. He had enough with the weather for the day with all the rainouts that he caused. So he got out of there with Brown County canceling and going up to Jamestown and bringing the weather with him. And then Devil's Lake, obviously, I felt bad for them too when they got canceled with their big Midwest modified special too with the Golden Hammers. That was too bad for them with their stuff. But no, it was a good month of July in Jamestown for the racing action over there. As they went through and did some stuff. And I was talking to Jamestown Speedway management a little bit on Saturday night after we got done, and there there is plans in motion here. Hopefully this week. It sounds like it was supposed to be this week or maybe at the beginning of next week, that their first round of new clay is coming in. So they'll be putting new clay on the track here as part of the kind of finishing touches for the 2024 season into the 2025 season. So they're not going to do it all at once. It sounds like it's going to be in increments, which will be kind of nice because they'll get worked in and then get that worked out here before we hit like some of our bigger specials in August and September.
Yep. So bit hectic night on Saturday for racing. Sunday got weird too. I hadn't even left Fargo when I was going to try to get down to Casino for the street stock tour, and they had a storm pop up right over the track there too. And it didn't rain in town until like 2 hours later. And I'm like, what? I was like, this weather is just ridiculous. So at that point, I'm like, do I go to a race? Do I just stay home out of frustration? And I'm like, you know what? Let's try to go to Bemidji. What the heck? I'm going to miss the first half of the night. And if worse comes worse, they have a storm to the north of them. If that rains out, I'll try to hit Buffalo River on the way back. So I got to Bemidji. It's going to be a quick recap because I only got to see the features and I was all over the place. And so they got their entire program in. Pure Stocks went to Austin Carlson in the 57. Hornets to the 77 Megan Verland. I think that's her second feature win. So she's been on a hot streak as of late. Conrad Schwinn got the mini stocks, first of two wins on the night, as he also won in the Wissota Mod 4s. Joseph LaValle, who's only been out a handful of times this year, won the Midwest Modifieds. Tanner Williamson from Canada won the Wissota A mods, and then the Super Stocks finished off the program with Nick Lewis in the T26 taking the feature win. And they were done. They started at 5 o'clock, and so they were done probably about 8 o'clock. So pretty smoothly ran night. If you were 5 miles from the track, it was downpouring. So that's how spotty the weather was. And I think Buffalo River had the same issue with the storm popping up over them because they had the NOSA sprints there. And unfortunately, they got wiped out for the night too. So unfortunately, it was a very spotty weekend, depending on where you're at for racing. So,
Mhm. Agreed. Yeah, the whole weekend pretty much from Friday on was very much that way.
yeah. So hopefully this upcoming week, we don't have much for weather shenanigans. Although, like we mentioned earlier, it's Becca weather season at this point. So what do we got upcoming for racing in the state of North Dakota, Mr. Dakota Dirt?
Okay, now remember race fans, drivers, and everybody else. It is very much the summer months of racing season. So if you want to check out any type of schedules, weather forecast, because be sure to keep that heat under control, as well as other great racing information, check out your one-stop shop, which is Dakota Dirt. Again, dakotadirt.org, as well as Dakota Dirt on social media platforms. Don't worry, race fans, they will have some new and exciting articles upcoming here very soon, as they have been lacking on that. However, check them out on dakotadirt.org.
Why, thank you, John. The articles might be lacking for a little bit until we get the whole baby situation taken care of. Anyways, with that being said, it should be another exciting and busy week as um, there's going to be a lot of good racing this weekend in the North Dakota area. Uh, Kicking it off on Friday night, it's the Dakota Speedway with their 2 day Governor's Cup show. They will have two complete shows of Wissota late models. This is the first time in a long time. John, how many years has it been?
2016. 2016 was the last time we had a late model show in Mandan.
So if you're a late model fan, get out there and support it. There's some rumbling for some exciting news for the 2025 season. Potentially going to happen, but a lot of it will be based off of this weekend. So they need a lot of support from all the late model fans to make sure that some fun stuff can happen next year. Then it's the River City Speedway racing, along with Red River Valley Speedway, who's going to have their first race back after their fair. So they put the front stretch back in, and then you can only imagine the excitement of having to second race back. Whatever.
Oh,
You guys have talked plenty enough, Mason. How many cars flipped last week at well, actually we can actually discuss that after the race, but after the podcast, the Red River Valley will be having their second after the fair race, Mason. And then on Saturday is Dakota Speedway's night number 2 of the Gov Cup. The Devil Lakes Speedway will be also hosting a race as well, along with Thunder Mountain and Williston. So a lot of good racing on Saturday. And then Sunday is Cheyenne and McLean.
There you go.
Actually, McLean is their championship night, I think.
season championship night is on Sunday. Yep.
Yep.
Before they have their Cole County Classic next weekend.
Yep.
Yep. So a lot of racing action taking place in North Dakota outside of the state, just as much, if not even more so. We have on the 25th, Thursday, KRA Speedway, as usual. Norman County Raceway is having their Sanders Stock Car Challenge. And then Victory Lane Speedway is also running. The Red Cedar Speedway has the first of 2 nights for the Dirt Race Central Street Stock Tour, as it is their county fair races taking place. So they will be Thursday and Friday this week. Moving on to Friday, Brown County Speedway will be running. The Fiesta City Speedway has a modified and super stock special. Princeton Speedway with Meet the Drivers to close off Friday night. Saturday, the Dirt Race Central Street Stock Tour heads to Cedar Lake Speedway for the first time in a couple of years. Actually, Wisconsin-wise, we haven't had a race in 2 years because last year we got rained out. So, anyways.
Do it, Jessup. Do it.
Yeah.
What was wrong about that?
You said there wasn't a street stock race in Wisconsin.
Tour race.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
This is not surprising because usually when Jessup gets a caution thrown on him, he's like all like antennas up for like a slight mispronunciation to try to get his caution back so he's not in the back of the pack.
I have to go find something.
Hey, while he's finding something, I'll finish off the racing for the weekend. Madison Speedway has the Timmy Imes special for the Midwest Mods on the 27th. Miller Central Speedway back in action along with North Central Speedway. Ogilvie Raceway, Rice Lake Speedway, and the Viking Speedway as well. And then the 28th, we have Bemidji Speedway, Buffalo River, Casino, Granite City Motor Park with the rescheduled Fastlane Superstock Series, and the Redwood Speedway as well. Black Flag, eh?
Make
Sweet.
a pit side, Mason.
You had to find it, Mason. It was hidden.
Oh my gosh.
It's been so long since I've had to black flag someone.
You know, a true flag man is prepared and he has all the flags with them.
I think it fell somewhere. I don't know where it went.
You didn't put it in the flag holder?
Well, it was in the flag holder, but this isn't my normal go-to flag holder, so black
He
flag.
doesn't know that. He does not know that the flags belong always in the flag holder. Otherwise, the drivers don't know what they're doing.
Exactly. And then one little bonus race coming up by this time next week when we may or may not be podcasting. The Little Dream is taking place over at Rice Lake Speedway on the 30th. And so big race for the Wissota Street Stocks last year was, oh gosh, was it over 29,000 to win, I believe.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact amount, but we'll see if they hit the 30,000 plus mark this year.
Yep. So that'll be interesting to see who all shows up for that after a busy weekend of street stock racing over in that neck of the woods as well. So a lot of racing to take in on a very hot and muggy weekend. And so we will transition to our white flag segment and give a shout out to the real deal Brody Carlos Rude B1 IMC stock car, who Jessup and I got to talk with and hang out with a little bit over at the Norman County Raceway this past weekend. It's always good to catch up with Brody. If you see him in the pits, be sure to stop by and tell him hi as well. And he hasn't been really active on his podcast as of late. Of course, he was on the Dakota Classic Modified Tour, so that took up a lot of his time over the last couple of weeks, and now he's kind of getting back into the regular season form by racing over at Red River and North Central Speedway, and you will see him at Cheyenne Speedway as well. So thank you, as always, B. Brody and the B1 IMCA Stock Car for supporting us on the podcast. Jessup, even though you are being a turd, you can go first on wins of the week.
My wins of the week, Mason, as you guys try to belittle me and put me further in the back of the pack, even though this cannot happen because Becca's a no-show, and you are currently in the pits as well.
Are you sure on that?
I am 100% sure. You have not given us any evidence of who the favorite is, so you're at the back of the pack.
Or are you sure that's even going to make it to the final cut?
Doesn't matter. John?
The fans will know.
Yeah, it's Becca. Mason, it ain't any of us, so
You know why it's Becca? He's scared.
what?
I mean, Mason's probably scared of her.
Probably. She just beats everything. Just
I mean, you saw last week. I mean, she threatened to not even show up for the podcast, and like she was angry that I made her even make it a 2-minute appearance.
Yeah, see?
I love her. She just laying down the law on you guys. Anyways, my wins of the week first goes to Mark Dobmeyer for picking up the King of the Wings championship. He swept the weekend, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and that's a really good feat to do. Mark's a very talented driver, and you know, the IRA guys are no slouches with the big wheel, Scotty Thiel, Danny Schlafer, um, Christopher Tram. Who else is out there? Blackhurst is always good. Scotty Neitzel. A lot of really big Midwest, well, I'd say Wisconsin, big name Wisconsin sprint car drivers came up and he defended the turf, and that's no easy feat to do. And then he defeated all the local guys too. So he took on all comers. So that's my first one. Second one is gonna be, I'm gonna say, well, I'll just go on a more of a national level. I'll go with King David Gravel after his big win of the King's Royal in Eldora this weekend, and another sprint car race, which is it's a crown jewel race and no easy feat, especially holding off the likes of all the World of Outlaw and high limit drivers. So he beat the best of the best, and yeah, so he's looking in prime shape going into the Nationals here. And then finally, my last one. So many people to pick. Uh, I'll go with Joseph Feist with his hobby stock win at Dakota Speedway.
Excellent set of wins, Jessup. John, you want to go next?
I'll let you go.
Okay, I'll do 3 quick ones here. First win of the week goes to Thomas Sandvig. Drives the number 14 IMCA Sport Mod. He got his first career feature win last week at the Red River Valley Speedway. Definitely been a long time coming for him. He's looked really good the last year or so, and to knock down that first feature win is a big, big deal for him. So very good confidence boost for him and his brother John, who's also been very competitive in the sport mod as well.
Look at you, John. Just being competitive in the sport mod.
I'm impressive.
I agree.
My second win, I'm going to give it to a pure stock driver down in the Montevideo and Madison area, Joe Arndt in the 52 machine. Colton Schuler in the 16S has been pretty dominant in the pure stocks down in that area, and Joe Arndt held him off in a very good battle down in Madison this past weekend. So no easy feat to do when a guy's on a dominant tear. So congrats out to the 52 of Joe Arndt. And third win of the week, I will give a shout out to Dylan Sandberg for loaning his car over to Kelly Horner as Kelly picked up his first Jamestown Speedway win. It always is cool to see drivers be willing to give up their rides to other people in the racing community and to kind of see the success going from one person to another. It's really cool. And Kelly was very emotional in victory lane. So very good win for the Horner and Sandberg camp in Jamestown. John, who are your wins of the week?
Okay, so I'll go through my three wins of the week too. So my first win of the week has to go over to a driver that won a big late model race over in Cedar Lake this past weekend. It was a $5,000 to win Challenge Series show. Sammy Mars. Sammy has looked really good over in the Cedar Lake area, and congratulations to him on picking up a big win over there. As late model Challenge Series was over there on Saturday night, and they had a really nice swing this past weekend.
Question, John. Is that the first
Yeah.
time um, Cedar Lake has ran a Wasota late model show since the Western 100? Or not
Uh,
Western, Wasota 100.
that one I'm not 100% sure on, but I do know it's been many, many years.
I will say, yeah, it was interesting looking at the entries, and I'm like, oh, with Soda late models, and then I forgot that the challenge series was there, and so I'm like,
Yeah.
dang.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool to see because yeah, it's been a long time. If you know, the Wasona 100 used to be over there, was a staple always in the Cedar Lake area. Actually, I actually was on a plane over to Denver just a few weeks back, and I've got some of the old issues of the All the Dirt slash even the Wasota yearbook, and I was looking in those, and there was years that I remember back that the super stocks would get 120 plus cars for the Whistle 100. The mods would be in the 120 plus range. The late models would be over 100. So that was pretty cool. Those would be pretty cool numbers that we would see again. Hopefully one of these days again, maybe at some of the big specials around Minnesota. The second win of the week that I have to kind of give out there has to go over to Ty Olson. I know I mentioned him earlier, but to have a youngster that is 14 years old and a legend, the legend class is super competitive throughout the state of North Dakota into Minnesota, and he picked up a future win at his fourth different track this year. That's pretty cool to see. So congratulations to Ty. He's come a long ways here in the last 2 years. He's been racing now in the legend class. Started in just a few years back in 2022, and he was a rookie back then, and purchased a car and has built himself up ever since then. So it's kind of cool to see Ty having a lot of success over there in the Legends. And then my final win of the week will actually go over to a track. I have to give a win of a week over to the Interstate Speedway down in Jefferson, South Dakota. They were flooded. They got themselves back up and running this past Sunday. They had a huge memorial race. It was the Dave Riley Memorial Race. And within that memorial race, they had five classes of cars. They had 135 cars total, and they had 59 IMCA hobby stocks. It's a great field of cars for that memorial race. They're racing for over $2,000 to win. And within that hobby stock A main event, the feature winner of that race was Mike Smith in the 22 machine. So congratulations to Mike. Seen Mike win a lot of races over the years in that 22. But also have to give a shout out to Brandon Nielsen. We saw Brandon actually a few years back at Supernationals on his side in that T8 machine.
Oh, yeah.
He is out of Spencer, Iowa. And actually, that was where the GoPro, I think not the GoPro, but the drone was like right over the top of him. When that three wide battle up front of the big dance for the hobby stocks happened, and Brandon went from 18th to third in that race. So congratulations out there as well to Brandon. But no, congratulations to the Interstate Speedway. They had a very nice reopening over there this past Sunday with a lot of cars and just a great memorial race to kick off back into their racing season after for those terrible floods that were down there in the northern Iowa, southern Minnesota slash South Dakota area back in the end of June.
Yeah, that was really cool to see them up and running. Actually, I don't know if a lot of people expected they'd be back up and running this soon, but definitely a lot of work went into getting that place up and running again. And hopefully the rest of the tracks that have been affected by floods are able to do the same before the year's out. Well, do we have any closing thoughts for episode 19? Any predictions for late model winners or how many or even little dream predictions? Anything people want to lay out?
Okay, so I'm going to do a couple of predictions here. So I'm hoping the Governor's Cup has a lot of cars because I've always enjoyed that race. I am expecting late models probably at Dakota Speedway. I'm going to be super happy with the field of 20 to 24 cars. I think that would be a great car count for late models to come back to Mandan. I think that'll be kind of a perfect car count, kind of that area. If we get more than that, awesome. And if we get less than that, no big deal either. But I think the 20 to 24 would be pretty cool. Um, I think it'd be pretty cool, Jessup, and I think you'd agree with me on this, but it's been a long time since you've seen late models over a Mandan, maybe even never have seen late models over a Mandan. Um, it would be cool to see like the likes of maybe like a Mitch Johnson come back over again. I know Mitch wrecked his car here this past weekend, but if you could get it put back together, because Mitch used to dominate over at Dakota Speedway back in the mid 2000s to even into like the 2010 era. So that would be pretty cool to see Mitch back over there to do some racing action. So that'd be kind of cool to see Mitch and then, some of our local drivers back over there as well. So yeah, so I'm excited. Hank Berry, I'm hoping he makes a trek over too. Hopefully he comes over with his MC mod and inlay model as well. And maybe we'll get to see some of those some of the familiar names that we used to see back in the late model class. But no, but I'm hoping to see 20 to 24. And then I'm not going to make any predictions on who I think will win by any means. However, I will make a prediction for the Little Dream. So the Little Dream race this year in Rice Lake, I'm going to do car count prediction. I'm going to do I think feature winner prediction. So car count prediction, I am expecting about 55 Wissota Street Stocks at the Little Dream this year. I think that'll be a pretty healthy car count for Wissota Street Stock drivers over there. And for my prediction of the winner of that race, I am actually going to go with Ty Egan. And the reason why is because Ty has had a very nice season up to this point. He's had the car off just a little bit, he said the last couple of weeks, but he looked really good this past weekend. And I think if he gets the right raw passing points, heat race lineup starts up front, I think Ty's going to be tough to beat.
It's a good prediction. Jessup, you got any predictions or thoughts heading into the weekend?
Well, hmm. Well, I think if we get 16 or more late models this weekend after some questionable shakedown of events and stuff, or late scheduling of late model races by nearby tracks that claimed they were taking the weekend off of late models, I think it will be a good weekend. Um, I echo John. I think I would like to see anywhere from 18 to about 24 late models. If we get 16, I think it'll be just fine. But I would like to have enough for 3 heats. Um, that'd be a good weekend for them. As far as the Little Dream goes, I will say about 43. I think there'll be about 43 street stocks there, and I will go with Andrew Hansen as he's
Good picture.
got 5 wins out of 19 races, 10 top fives, 13 top tens. And looking at his kind of list of races at Rice Lake, he's got a first, a second, and a DNF, 2 DNFs actually, but he's been pretty strong so far this year, and I don't see that changing.
Yeah, he's looked really good, and usually he doesn't DNF all that much. He's really good at
Yep.
keeping his car clean and keeping the wheels underneath him. So, yeah, I hope you guys get a really good car count at the Gov Cup for late models. Definitely been a long time coming. We joke about it all the time, but it'll be a nice sight to see over at Dakota Speedway. I'm thinking about 20 to 22 late models there as well. I've been going back and forth in my head for predictions on street stocks. I might take the low hanging fruit, but I'm going to see if I'm going to go with Justin Vogel this year. Think he's due. He's starting to get his car working. He's been really competitive over at KR Speedway, racing with Keith Tourville, who was last year's winner. So I'm sure those two will be up in the front battling again. But I'm going to see. I'm going to pick the Wolverine to get his first street stock Little Dream this year.
And it'll be very interesting too, Mason, to see all the names that show up for the street stock because usually that one draws a lot of street stocks throughout the country. And I think the other thing too is that we might have some of the eastern side Wisconsin boys show up that could be very tough. The likes of Kyle Jeanette, one of the drivers that comes to my mind that I think he's if he comes over for the street stock Little Dream, I think he's going to be very tough to beat too.
Yep, there's a bunch of cars over there that kind of get loaned to different drivers too that race in other divisions. So there's going to be some surprises. I'm sure that'll be on the entry list as well. I'm thinking I'm going to go in the middle, probably like 51 to 52. The sort of street stocks is my guess. So with that, that'll do it for episode 19 of season 3. Not sure if we're gonna have a podcast episode next week because I will be at the Little Dream next Tuesday. So we'll see what we do for podcasting next week. But thank you as always for watching and or listening. Be sure to like, share, and follow on our social media platforms and listening platforms as well. Thank you to our sponsors, Hitch Harness, The Real Deal with Brody One, B1 Brody Carlsrud, and Isaac Hot Sauce Sandro. A lot of racing coming up. Stay hydrated in this hot weather, and we will see you out there packing the track.